Hi, everyone. I'm Hussein here with the technical marketing team. I'll give you a little bit of background. I started out as a VFX artist and did a lot of visualization. So I mainly worked on the CG side, so Maya, Max, Houdini, and pretty much everything under there. And I come from the background where you would, set up your lighting, you would set up your modeling, rigging, whatever. And then you would painstakingly wait for those renders that would go off to a render farm, and you would have to make sure nothing crashed or you didn't miss any frames or your passes came out correctly. Then you would get that whole bundle of stuff. You'd open up a Nuke or After Effects, and then you'd go through in your compositing. And in that time, whoever is reviewing that, your producer or the director, don't get to see that final output. And then by the time they get it, it's been days, it's been weeks, it's been months. And then we go back to the drawing board, we red mark everything. You need more light here, you need more of this. And at the end, it's a very, very painful process. And I don't know how many of you have seen what the team that is doing a lot of the Lego animations is doing. What is the name of the studio? Pure Imaginations. We did a session with them a little while back where they kind of show one of their directors getting a shave. And basically, he said in the time that it takes to shave, we're able to make our whole show. In comparison to before, it was a, days, weeks, and months process to actually render out those shots. So this is kind of wanting to focus this talk on people that are coming from an artist background and they're a little bit more afraid of the programming, even though I got a lot of programmers in here today. So you might not get as much as you were thinking on the programming side, because I want this to be attainable for all of the artists that are out there, because I know it's a kind of a scary thing to move on. So I'm just going to start rolling. So we're just going to talk a little bit about it. If you're already a Unity user, you understand packages now as of 2018.4. We're going to be talking about specific packages like the FBX exporter and kind of, thinking about using prefabs in modular workflows. We're going to be talking about our scriptable render pipelines, but really in focus today is HDRP and a little bit about the volumes framework and how we can use post-processing in the lighting and a little bit of shader graph. And then we're going to talk about how we can do some really cool things to our animations. Let's say we had someone in Maya or Max create our animations, but we wanted to add a little bit more interactivity, or there is something that is going to change and we don't want to have to get a whole new animation made for us. So we're going to have animation rigging and then a little bit on Cinemachine and how we can use volumes on that. So without any further ado, let's jump into the demo time. So I'm just going to go straight into Maya, right? So I've got my model here and I'm starting to work. So I've got my little spaceship here. It's been approved. Everything is cool. And I want to be able to basically go back and forth and do this, this full round tripping between Maya and Unity. And one thing that I have that's kind of cool is that I now have this special little, I guess, export menu item that allows me to import, export the full scene, model, whatever happens to be there, just the model, just the animation. And it does this through creating export sets that are red. As you can see here, I have all the pieces of this model, and then I've gone here and I've added these sets to this export for Unity. And when I do so, I can then get that. I'm going to open up my Unity scene. Right now, I've turned off all my lighting. I've turned off all of my post-processing just so we can see how this works. So I've got my, my spaceship here. What's cool is that when I'm round tripping, I don't have to worry about scale. As we know, the scale is very different between Maya and Unity. In one, you have centimeters, and the other one, you have meters. Let's say I wanted to modify this, and I'm sitting here. I've added trails. I've added projectile spawns. I have a camera, a Cinemachine camera locked into it. I don't want to have to re-import this and connect everything up. I want to just be able to send this off to Maya and then work with it. So for those of you that aren't aware, we have what is called the package manager. I know a lot of you that are on the call right now seem to know a lot about Unity. You're probably way better than I am. But for those of you that are going to watch this afterwards, we're going to want to have the FBX exporter. You're going to install it. And you might not see it because this is in preview. So you're going to have to go to the advanced project settings and enable preview packages. And the reason we are giving this distinction between a verified package and a preview package is that the preview package might change. So if you are implementing a project or something and you want to use it for the next 3 years, and someone goes and updates, and something that you were accustomed might have been changed or moved or removed, you will be in for kind of a rude awakening. So we tell people, hey, with some of the preview things, use them with caution. They'll probably work just fine, but that is kind of the caveat. So that's how you get in here through your project settings. We're going to go back to the project manager and show you we're going to have the high definition render pipeline. But in this one, you see we have verified. I also, went to the settings and I said show dependencies. The reason I want to show dependencies is I want you to be aware that a package might have several different things inside of it. So we can take advantage of shader graph and visual effects graph inside of the high definition render pipeline, and you also get all the samples. And again, we have Cinemachine that we're bringing in through here, and we have the animation rigging package that we are going to be bringing in through here as well, which is right here, which is also in preview. And it has, I would suggest going in and downloading or importing, I should say, some of the rigging constraint samples. They've got some really, really cool things. That team has done some awesome stuff. That's kind of how I ended up learning some of it here, is by dissecting and reverse engineering those. So without any further ado, let's jump back into our scene and start doing this round tripping. So what I would do once I have installed it, I would go over here to my game objects and I would have this option, or I'll have this option that says convert to FBX prefab variant. So what's the difference between just a normal FBX export, you may ask? Well, the reason is that the prefab variant is going to make it have a link between that application, a 3D application, and Unity. So it's not going to be a re-import. It's basically just going to be a modification of whatever is in those sets. And I've already done it. You would get kind of a prompt. If I do it here, it'll say, hey, it's already a prefab, but you'll get a prompt if you want it to be ASCII or if you want it to be a binary file, and then where you want to place it, etc. So I'm going to go back to Maya, and I'm going to come here and I'm going to start doing some modifications. So I'm going to come here and I'm just going to, maybe put a bevel here or an extrude. Let's do an extrude. Why not? Oops. Oh, well, I got a little skewed there, but it's all good. Doesn't look like the greatest of bevels. I think I grabbed more than I anticipated, but I'm not worried about it. It's just for show purposes. So you can see I have a modification there. The other thing I might want to do is I have this pivot point and I want to move the pivot point of this part of this fuselage, and I want to move it back. So we're going to hit the insert key. We're going to go back here. And then, of course, I'm going to finish off my operation. So we see we have made some changes. So let's go back here. Remember, we have to select it. If you don't select anything, it's not going to know what to send out here. So select your object. You're going to go to Unity. And since it's just this part of the model, I'm going to say export model only. And this already happened. Immediately, we'll notice that this part now has, oops, let me select the right part. Come on. Did you not get the pivot? Well, did my pivot not set? Maybe I didn't set it right. But anyway, you got to see the model changed. And now we're going to go make sure this pivot is correct. Hey, what happened here? Making me look funny here. Come on. All right. So for some odd reason, my pivot didn't go through, but at least my model came through. Last night, it worked just fine. So again, preview package. Sometimes it works perfect, and sometimes there might be some little things. But in essence, you should be able to do this. And let me just make sure that this pivot is set perfectly. I'm going to redo it. And hopefully this time, and I'm going to make some more changes here where I am going to just go crazy. And again, you notice I haven't even saved this. I'm just pushing back and forth, right? Oh, I'm in center pivot mode. Oh yeah, you're right. Inside of Unity. Thank you very much. Boom. As you can see, it worked just fine. And thank you so much, Sean Beck. This is what I like when we're doing live sessions, because I get awesome people like you that point out some of the obvious things. Usually when you're doing a demo, you're a little nervous and you've got all this stuff going on and you forget some of the simplest little things. Love you, bro. So here we go. You can see that all updates. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the software, but there is plenty wrong with me. So that is just to illustrate some of the things that you can do. You can send off a whole batch of stuff. Here is just a small little illustration of what you can do. I'm going to get rid of all this stuff because I don't really think it looks that good. The other thing I would say, one of the things I will say is that the UV editor is really, really good inside of Maya and some of the other tools. Take advantage of it. If you already have a bunch of assets made in Maya and you already have a pipeline in Maya, it's very easy to go through and send this off. This isn't the only way to get your stuff through. You can use Alembic or USD, but we're not going to cover those today, meaning the short time that we have. Again, let me go export model only. We're going to go back to Unity. And bam, our pivot is set back to where it's supposed to be. And our model is back to where it was. So enough of that bit. And we're going to start talking about our high definition render pipeline. Again, we're going to come in here and make sure that it is installed. You can also HD, just look for it here, high definition render pipeline, install it. And again, some of the dependencies that you have. So back in here, we see it's not quite that amazing at the moment, and that's because I haven't applied anything to it. We have to understand that when we install a graphic pipeline, we do have to make sure that our project settings are set correctly. So we have to make sure that it is selected. So at the moment it is, I just haven't turned it on. And then if there are things that are happening in it, we have to know what our settings are. We can have different settings if you want deferred, or if you want, and this is the default render pipeline asset. You can have deferred, or you can have forward, or you can have both. You can apply it to different cameras, but they can't work both at the same time. Sometimes they have caveats on one side or the other, depending on what you want to do. The other thing, if you are working in a traditional pipeline, let's say you're coming on from a Maya production, just like I said, that Lego Batman, that Pure Imagination Studios is now using Unity for their post-production with, they already have their full pipeline. They were using V-Ray or Arnold, whatever, and now they've just decided to use real-time 3D through Unity. So they might want to have those render passes. And one of the things one of the dependencies of some of the packages that we brought in is Recorder, which allows you to record out individual images just like you would in a render engine. But if you want alpha channels to be able to composite those, you're going to have to go to 16-bit A. So that is how you get your alpha channel. Some people might be in, in your 10-bit and you don't get that alpha channel and you wonder what's going on. This isn't working. It's because you have to select the alpha. So just be aware that you'll have to do that. In your high definition render pipeline asset, which you can create several of, you have options to come here and pick your pick your options. I'm not going to go through it all, but just be aware, here it is. If you want to add things that aren't there, like screen space ambient occlusion, or add more quality to your directional light shadows, you can change all of this through here. So back into our scene, once we have this, you're going to realize that, okay, now that I'm warning in HDRP, we're going to be using a different type of light. We're going to be using linear. And it's going to be very different. So I'm going to have my light. I'm going to turn on my light. And, oh, I have to turn on my lighting first. So here's my lighting. And here is kind of my post-processing. So as we can see, I'm going to turn on my gizmo so we can see my light. And I'm going to turn off my shadows just so we can see what this looks like. It's not the greatest. It's kind of lackluster. We need a few things. We notice our shaders are coming in quite nicely, but it's still not the it's not that great. So how can we start working with this? So the high definition render pipeline uses volumes. So when you apply a volume, you have two different types. You have a global and a local. Local volumes can be applied to areas, like maybe it's a cube, or maybe it's a sphere, or maybe it's a actual mesh that you're making into that volume space, which is cool. Unity allows you to have that space. I think other software just allow you to have like a square or a circle instead of, or a sphere, I should say, instead of actually a compound mesh, which is, deformed, or I could make this walker here into a local volume if I wanted to, by adding that volume component to it and then setting it to local. So continuing on, we will create. So I'm just going to create a new one. I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to create another global volume, and I can just name it. You notice I could put one right underneath the other one. This is going to be my beginners, and I am going to take it out from under there and just put it over here and turn it on. You notice it's empty. It doesn't do anything. It's asking for a volume profile. The cool thing about volume profiles is if you you're in a big group, you have a lot of people working on different scenes, but all the scenes have the same feel. And someone, took their time and made, added all the elements they wanted, all their overrides to this profile, and it's just perfect. You don't want to have to redo that. You can just take that file and give it to somebody else, and they can apply it. So at the moment, I'm just going to create a new profile, and it's empty. We also see there's a priority and a wait. A wait means we can go from one to another, from the default one. So when you start up, there's going to be a default. So you can add these overrides, and like right here, I can add an exposure and I can start adding. I'm going to go to a physical camera. You realize they went super dark. Now it's physically accurate. I'm going to do some compensation to kind of bring it up to kind of a midday kind of feel. But you notice my light isn't really doing as much now, because now realize 100 lux is very little. We have to bump this up quite a bit, maybe not that much. But we can tell that now that it's in a, in a real kind of lighting scenario, that light is going to start reacting correctly, and you can start applying. Since we don't have time to go through this whole thing, I'm going to turn this guy off, and then I'm going to turn on one that I have already kind of set up. And I'm going to turn a lot of these things off so we can go one by one and kind of see what these feel like, okay? And kind of what they are. So I'm going to turn on this global volume. So what we've done, we've added an exposure node. I've set it to a value. I've added some ambient occlusion. I've added some bloom. I've added a high dynamic range sky, which also has a backplate on it, and then a visual environment. You'll notice that this HDRI doesn't come in effect until I hit the visual environment. So this backplate is actually just coming off of my, just coming straight off of my HDRI. And I'm just putting that over this mesh that I have that kind of has measurements for me. So now you can start seeing, you're getting really, really cool stuff. I think I have a vignette turned on here. And I also have some color adjustments that really, really make that pop. I have chromatic aberration. We can, kind of do some fun stuff with that. I threw that on there just for fun, just because why not? Yeah, let's make it crazy. I also have some screen space reflections. You can start seeing how quickly something like this would cost you a lot of render time inside of Maya or any of the other render engines. You can do a little tone mapping to get the sky to look, to match this correctly. Man, that chromatic aberration is just too wild for me. How am I for time? It looks like I still have a couple minutes left. So we can start adding. With the shadows, I added a max distance, and I'll show you what happens here. Oh, let me go back to my light and turn the shadows on. Boom. So now we have shadows turned on. And let me go back to my global volume. And we are going to go to, where was I? To my shadows. So the max distance, let's say if you don't have a distance set, let's say you just put 1 meter, you'll notice that those shadows disappear. If you have a really big, humongous scene, you might have to add more. Again, in Unity, each number is, or each unit is basically a meter. So if I say, 2 meters, and you have to understand, this is from the camera that I'm viewing it from. So we'll basically have to turn this up, and you start seeing it's kind of a circle from where I am positioned in that camera. So if I start moving back, you'll see that shadow go away. And then we start bumping this up, we start getting the other shadows. And that's why I threw that in there, because a lot of people have these humongous scenes and then, hey, my shadows only work in this area. Well, you'll have to put in an override for shadows and add, 5,000 is probably too much. But you can see how it starts, because it's spreading that out, how it starts giving you some different kind of shadows. But 500 I found looked good in my scene. So that's what I did. So now we can start seeing how this really adds to our scene. And I'll just turn on all the rest of them other than chromatic aberration. Is everything on? And then I am going to throw some fog in there so we can have a little bit of fog. And now you start seeing these are kind of things that really, really start giving our scene that look and feel. And remember, this guy still works. So this is a little game character that flies around and does his thing. So if we go to my follow camera, which is actually a Cinemachine free look camera, we're going to transition now into Cinemachine, and then we're going to do a little bit of animation rigging if we have the time. So I am going to make sure, again, everything is based off priorities. I believe on this one I have, where is my priority? I have a priority of 11, and on this one I have a 20. So I'm just going to turn this one off. We're going to go into play mode or game mode, and you guys get to see this. And let me know if you guys can see all of this once I get going. Sorry, I should have pre-warmed everything beforehand, but I now have my little guy. And as you can see, my guy can fly around. He's got his stuff. And I can have some fun. Whoa, don't get eaten up by the monster. So again, this is, well, again, I didn't set any, any boundaries or anything. It can go through anything and everything. But again, I have this VCam camera for the boss, and we get this really nice, cool little transition of where I set that camera up. Which brings me to some of the other things. Very quickly on shader graph, we have the ability to create our own shaders through a node-based system. Currently on this current ship, if I go to my project, we can see that I have just a normal HDRP. I have my base map, my mass map that has kind of my specular, my metalness, my dirt map, and my AO kind of combined in the 4 channels, RGBA. And I can then, adjust accordingly and make, actually, if I'm going to be adjusting it, you guys probably want to be really close up and see it do its thing. This is kind of a fun little shader. It's got some shinies. So if we go here, you'll be able to see kind of some of these changes. And this is kind of my AO kind of changing up. Then my detail map, and I also have an emission map. So on this emission map, you can see I can start turning those afterburners up and getting some really, really nice feel. But what if I want to change this? What if I want this to be a little more modifiable? So what I did is I created my own map inside of Shader Graph that does pretty much everything that HDRP map does, but now I can change some of the masks. So I went with a kind of a, again, I could actually just select a whole lot of them and very quickly just drop this into the element, and then everything would go there. I don't know why I'm doing it the hard way. So what will this allow me to do is that now I've exposed some properties that allow me to change the colors. Very quickly, I can go in and modify. And those of you that are coders can go in and actually code this in your game, or even if you're just making a production, and have this work really, really quickly. And you now have, I just added 3. You could have as many as you want, and you can make the variances that you wish. And again, you have all your similar connections. Wow, this looks horrible. You're going to be like, this guy's an artist. Look at how horrible that looks. I don't know that. I think I needed more coffee. That green just does not look good. Oof. Maybe you guys have better suggestions. I don't know. There, that looks a little nicer. I'll leave it there. So now I've got my cool patriotic wings here. And let me give you a show of what this looks like. So as you can see, we have our masks over here, which basically are going to take that color that we put in. So we have exposed these. And if you guys aren't aware, we have a blackboard, and then we have our area to work in. And then we have our master nodes at the end, which are very similar to the normal PBR. And then we just make our simple connections. Whatever I have put inside of my blackboard, and if we open this up, we'll notice there's a tab that says exposed. This allows it to then show up in the inspector, as we saw, in our scene mode when we're looking at the actual shader. It will now expose all these properties for us, and we can go in and change it. And I can come here and make that emission turn up a lot more and just have fun with it. And I guess there's a limit of 10, no problem. And I can also change the color if I wish, but that's fine. So now we have that. Let's go into our camera. So we had this, I think I'm going to go into the boss camera and take a look at that one. And I wanted to show you some of the things that we can do inside of, I'm just going to dock the game camera here, that we can do inside of Cinemachine cameras. So we can come here and we can add volumes within it. So I added this VCam boss profile, and I've added this Cinemachine volume settings. So I can add bloom, and bloom also allows me to add like a lens flare on it. And I just downloaded something from online and put it on there. We can turn the intensity up. We can make it just really, really fun. I thought this one looked kind of cool for this. The other thing we can do is we can have depth of field. You can see that looks really, really cool. Try doing depth of field on the fly with Maya or some of the other tools. It's going to be almost impossible. Then I added some ambient occlusion. You notice that since I'm in this camera area, I'm also getting that inside of here because it's acting like a local volume. I'm in that camera space, so it's showing up in my viewport as well. So just to let you know, there's a lot of things you can do with Cinemachine. This is just to show you that you can also introduce some of the post-processing to that camera and to as many as you want on the local level. So each camera can have its own feel. And you can add all tons of overrides. There is just, you can go bonkers really on the different things that you can do. So yeah, maybe lens distortion if you wanted to. Anyway, I've got to get going because my time is like almost up. So very quickly, the last thing I want to talk about is animation rigging. And that is another thing that's really cool. So I have a couple things here, and hopefully I can show you on how to do it. So animation rigging allows you to take something. So let me just go back to just my straight up scene mode so we can take a look at my worm here. So this worm didn't really have a rig. It just came in with these modular pieces, and I added these so-called bones, as you can see, through animation rigging. So we have the animation rigging tab here, and then we can do a rig setup, and we can do a bone render setup. Bone render setup isn't necessarily required, but the reason you would do that is so you can actually see. You can apply these to any transform. So basically, I took this worm and I said, okay, we want to be able to make it move, and we want to be able to make it bite at a certain target. So I'm actually going to go back to my kind of split game mode, and hopefully you guys can see, so you can get to see kind of what that looks like. So I create a empty game object. I call it procedural rigs. And then I commence to start my rigs. What you see here is basically the bone renderer, which allows me to come in here and grab different elements. And the reason I did that is that once I start creating this, I'm going to have to start dragging different transforms to different things. And this is a dampen transform. So let me just show it to you, because I'm actually like 1 minute to stop time, and we also have Q&A. Oh, I wish I had more time. So to be able to show this, I pretty much have to preview the animation so we can kind of go live, and I'm going to kind of run it here so you can see it and let it go through. Again, we can change what these targets look like and so forth, and you can start seeing that now this guy is following what I am doing. Again, this is all procedural. This is super cool. So I have made a target, and each one of these has had the target set for itself. And then the other thing, if I go here to my head, you can start seeing some of the cool things. It's a little bit shaky, but you can start seeing I did not have to do any animations. I'm getting full procedural animations here. And we're getting this really cool render with our screen space reflections and our fog, our bloom, all sorts of stuff. The other one that I did, and let me stop this here, was I created some lights on this guy right here going through the fog. And then I made, and let me just unlock my animation so I can get to the walker, and then we can kind of see what this walker is doing. So the same thing, I created runtime rig, and then I added a 2-bone IK constraint for the legs, and then I added a target for the turret. So we're just going to preview this, kind of see what that looks like. Again, I have no animation on this. I just basically created a rig. You do have to kind of go in play mode. And again, my camera is over there, but I'll show you through these. So you can start seeing, I can start moving, and I can start animating this if I wish. So that is super, super cool. And now I have the ability to give it a target and move it about. So hopefully I have inspired you guys to go in and start downloading the animation rigging and having some fun with it. This kind of concludes the amount of time I had. I think it was a 9 to 9:30. It's 9:36. So do Q&A real quick, and we'll go from there. And if I have any questions, I guess you can put them in chat, or where is the Q&A? Here it is, Q&A. Is there something similar that can be done to live link Maya and Unity? Do you mean like basically if I move something in Maya, it moves immediately in Unity? At the moment, I think it just works through this through the FBX, where you do have to kind of do that. You can probably script it. I do know that in Houdini, there is a complete live solution, and I will probably be doing a session on that where you can do whatever you want in Houdini, and it updates while you're playing in Houdini. It's updating. It's a little bit more involved. You do have to install a little bit more, and you do have to have a license for Houdini to use that. I guess you just have to have a license for Maya anyway to do this. Any other questions? So again, very quickly, you guys can see I can basically take a scene from Maya, bring it in, and get this extra functionality just by doing some very simple things. The lighting is amazingly fast. And I can actually go in here and play my game. Whoa, I just lost my airplane. I don't know where it went. Okay. If we have no more questions, thank you so much for taking the time and checking this out. I hope I've inspired some of you to go in, have some fun, open up the packages, and start creating some cool things that you're bringing in from Maya. Thank you.